Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Why do we not let our children eat sugar? This is a question that we get in various forms. It's not always that direct, but we are going to answer that question. We're going to ask the question we wish people asked us, and that's the question. Why don't we let our kids eat sugar? No, I'm joking. We do want to let you know that we're really grateful for all the support we get on this podcast. Katie and I were just talking about how this is such a blessing to us, being able to sit down, talk out an array of subjects, consider them as a couple, have the discussion as a married couple, and hopefully, benefit from it. Or hopefully our home benefits from it, and hopefully your home benefits from some of these conversations as well. If you do enjoy the podcast, we would love it if you're able to leave a rating or a review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to our podcast. Then if you watch it on YouTube, if you're able to subscribe, that helps us as well. And really, any way you're able to share our podcast, we literally, that's what we depend on. We depend on you guys helping our podcast grow. That's what keeps us going, and we're grateful to be able to do it, and we appreciate the support. So thank you. And with that, we will get this thing rolling.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
So this is kind of a tricky topic, the whole topic of sugar in moderation, because we do believe in moderation in things. And unfortunately, sugar in moderation is kind of not even possible in our society.
Whoa.
And so we want to talk about that, kind of what we do with our kids when it comes to sugar, what we do for ourselves when it comes to sugar. But before we jump in,
Okay.
we have a music camp we want to talk about.
Oh boy. This is really exciting for me. So my sister Lilia and her husband Blake are putting on a music camp in my hometown, Centralia, Washington. And they're heading it up, and they're getting a ton of support from my mother and from my other siblings as well. And this year, we're going to be able to go over there. I'm going to be teaching at the camp. Katie's going to be there with our kiddos, going to different classes. There's going to be fiddle classes, guitar classes, piano. There's a choir, a kids choir that my mom is leading. There's also art classes. My sister-in-law, Kennedy, is teaching, what is it? Is it watercolor?
I think she might be teaching watercolor,
okay.
Yeah.
And so that's really fun. And this is a little bit of a different camp format than what we've done in times past, because maybe you've heard me talk about how, I guess, monumental music camps were in my upbringing, going to the Boer Family Music Camp, or going to, Shasta Music Camp in Mount Shasta, California, or whatever, going to the, Johnny Gimble Music Camp or Randy Elmer Music Camp. And we loved those as a family. They were extremely formative, but they were also a huge commitment, time-wise and financially. Like, they were usually a week long. They'd usually start on a Sunday night. You register, and then it gets done Saturday night.
Wow.
So a full week. Travel was obviously included in all of that as well. And then they were really expensive. But my family decided to do just it's really just a 3-day camp. So I think you get there on the night of the, I should look up the dates really quick.
June 19th?
19th, is it? Yeah, is it? I think it's the 19th. You just looked? You're confident. Okay.
I don't know. I'm not. I
We'll
know
put
it
the dates
covers the
below.
20th. Yeah, it's like between the 18th and the 21st.
There we go.
It's the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday
Nice.
of that June 2024.
Great.
They've done it for the past couple years, but this is the first year Lily and Blake are heading it up.
Yes. It's the first year we're able
And
to
it's
go.
the first year, we're going to go.
Be a part of it. Anyways, we're stoked because our kiddos get to go and they get to be a part of classes. They are just getting so fired up for music right now. And we wanted to invite all of you. It's in Centralia, Washington, the Pacific Northwest. Again, I could go on and on about the schedule of the camp, but you can just go look, because that would get kind of boring. So if you're interested.
We'll just have it linked down in the description box. And if you are a Voteberg Music Academy student, then check your inbox, because we sent you guys a code this last week so you can get a discounted rate. And for students that do go to Music and Arts Week, you get a free month of Voteberg Music Academy, so you can brush up on your skills before going to the camp. So just know that. And I wanted to let you guys know about that in case you're local. I know it's not going to work for a lot of our listeners, but if you're local to Washington.
Yeah, it's actually fun. We want to make a point anytime we know we're going to be at an event. Some of you might be close by to where that event is taking place, and we would love it if we're able to meet you in person. And so this is one of those events happening in June. We're going to be there. It's a 3-day event. We'd love to see anybody that's there, or that anybody who wants to be there.
Yeah. Okay, so going into sugar.
You know what's crazy? Before we start, I was like, this is so self-incriminating, because I think you maybe have these stats, but isn't it like 60 or 70% of people's sugar consumption usually comes through beverages.
I actually didn't look that up, but we heard that from someone this last week when we were talking to them about sugar.
It's a high percentage. And then I sat down, I just went and grabbed a beverage really quick. And we're not huge beverage people here. I go in and out of, phases of being into whatever, sparkling waters or the spindrifts I was into for a bit. But I got some of these over the weekend because it was, it was a holiday weekend. We had family, and they were the Topo Chico, like with 3%, juice in them, but there is 0 sugar in these.
So that's incriminating?
No, I wanted to get that out of the way. It could be incriminating if I didn't clarify that, because it just looks like another soda can. Like it looks like a
no,
I don't know,
we don't drink soda.
San Pellegrino or something, like one of the sweet.
But I have heard that Topo Chico has very high levels of whatever those chemicals are that circulate in your bloodstream, and you can't get them out. That's why we went to that's why we went away from LaCroix and Topo Chico and went to Spindrift.
Really? Mm-hmm. Boy. Well, I'm not even going to drink this anymore. I am. I'm going to set it down.
No. Stop.
There's no sugar. I just wanted to, man, that's embarrassing. Can we start this thing over again without the Topo Chico in the shot?
No. In our day and age, it is hard to avoid everything. And you have to research a ton to be able to avoid everything that's out there. Mm-hmm. And then you find out that your great substitute had something else with it.
Well, even like the cans versus the glass bottles, I think there's something to that as well. And so that was kind of incriminating as well.
Well, this isn't a Rain on Elisha's Parade episode, but I think that this whole concept of sugar, I hear from a lot of parents, well, we want to have sugar in moderation. We don't want to be super strict. We don't want to be, take away the joy from our children's childhood, essentially, and strip away their screens and their sugar and all these fun things for them. We want to be able to let our kids have a good time. And I totally relate with that. But the difficult thing about sugar is I just watched a documentary on sugar, and I'm going to link it down below. It is because I don't remember any of the stats. So you're going to have to watch it yourself if you're actually curious. But I guess where we started having all these hidden sugars, I'm sure a lot of our listeners know this even better than I do, was around the 1950s, because one of our presidents, he had a heart attack, and the American dude argued that it was because we had too much fat in our foods. And a British guy argued that it was because there was too much sugar in our standard American diets. And the American guy won. Surprise, surprise.
This was like formal debate, or?
I'm not sure. You have to watch the documentary.
Okay.
And as a result, everyone agreed, essentially, this American guy, and took all the fat out of our food. And that's when the low fat craze started, going into the 60s, late 50s, early 60s. And food didn't taste very good, so food manufacturers started adding in sugar to replace the taste that was removed by fat. And so when we say sugar in moderation, usually we're thinking okay, well, I want to give my children treats in moderation, like candy or cookies or cake or ice cream or brownies or whatever the case may be. But unfortunately, just eating what's on the grocery shelf, when it comes to crackers and breads and yogurt and snacks, chips,
my favorite,
and all these things, we're already way over our limit.
Yeah, dressings, like salad dressings, dips.
Of what is healthy for our children. We're past the moderation point before we even add in any treats.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of devastating information.
Yeah.
But it's I know it's easy for me to think, oh, well, when I give my child a cookie, they're only having one cookie. They just had 3 meals today and a snack. They haven't had any sugar today. But in reality, they've had so much sugar, they're on the path to diabetes, unless we have made all that food from scratch and made sure that there were no sugars in anything that we were feeding them all day long.
Wow. So this is hopeless.
No, I'm just saying we just need to be clear on what sugar is.
Yeah.
I think because I heard a really well-meaning mom explain well, I just want a cookie at the end of the day. My child wants a cookie at the end of the day. We need to have treats and fun and all things in moderation. I was yeah, I totally agree with you. But I think all of us as Americans have this all things in moderation mindset, and what moderation is to us is comparing ourselves to the other people that we're looking around at. And all those people are sick, their cells are sick, and 3 out of 4 are going to die from heart disease, diabetes, cancer, which are all related to sugar, like sugar-related deaths.
They have a huge, they play a
diet-related
role.
deaths, I should say. And so our moderation, like it's hard to tell what moderation is here in America.
Yeah.
I guess. Like maybe if we go to another country, like even when you see the ketchup, like British ketchup versus American ketchup, Heinz, the exact same brand. The British ketchup doesn't have all the added sugars in the corn syrup that our Heinz ketchup has here in the States.
Yeah.
It's like the exact same company knows they can't get away with it over in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Sauces, marinades, like you just go on and on and
Everything.
on. And it's yeah, exactly. And this isn't even getting into like the oils that, are used. This is just sticking with the sugars. And it's funny because I think this is really where like I think it's really easy for us to not be, I would say critical. I don't feel critical towards anybody in how they feed their children because it's just so, and we find ourselves in busy weekends or you're shopping for quantity, especially when you start shopping for quantity. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, we need when you look at the bread, you look at the tortilla chips, like finding tortilla chips that don't have, and like that seems like a healthy thing, right? Like, oh, tortilla chips. And you're like, oh, I got to get organic. And then you're like looking in the back and you don't want any added sugar. You don't want the oils. Like it becomes a real challenge. And like you said with the ketchup, like that's a staple in our home and going.
Yeah, it's like $7 a bottle for a little tiny bottle of ketchup.
Yeah, and there's still sugar in it, but like
no,
we get no sugar.
We don't have any sugar in our ketchup.
Look at that.
It tastes so much better than ketchup with sugar too.
Wow, I just thought we didn't do the high fructose corn syrup.
No, it's actually unsweetened.
Wow, completely. Good for us. Well, maybe I do have a little bit of.
No, but
I do feel good about myself. Self-righteousness there.
No,
we're eating the unsweetened ketchup. Hey guys, we wanted to pop on here really quick and let you know that the Homeschool Summit, Relational Summit is happening literally right now. As you're watching this, the 4-day event is underway, but you can still join. So check the link below. We're going to be speaking at this live event along with some of like our favorite people within the Christian homeschool community. Some people that we've benefited from since we were children, like the people my parents were learning from and growing from, and we continue to learn and grow from these people. So we're really honored to be, I guess, speaking at the same event with all these other people. So check out the lineup below. You can see where to register. Any other information, Katie?
No, I'm just excited to listen to Nancy Campbell and Rachel Djokovic and the Benhams, and I hope you guys enjoy them too.
But like I think we just got through a weekend. Like I said, it was busy. There was lots of family, and I think we're feeling the results of when you're eating on the run, when you're shopping for large groups, when you're cooking for large groups. There's going to be sugar in it, like 99% of the time, like, and a lot of sugar, like probably too much sugar without getting to the treats. Like this is excluding desserts. This is just like the dressing in the salad or the bread on the side, you decide to put jam on your bread. And I mean, that's an obvious one, but still like it can go unnoticed.
Elisha knows because it really goes unnoticed. In my family, we joke about this. My dad always joked about this growing up. He's like, your mom's so strict on sugar, but she has jam on her bread every day. I will say my mom has gone breadless and jamless for a while now. Wow. But
because it's not just the jam, it's the bread too, usually.
It's those highly refined carbohydrates that turn to sugars in your body. And so why are we even like talking about this? I guess the whole reason we wanted to even have a discussion on this is it worth it to not let your kids have sugar? And when I say sugar, I mean, one, we're kind of talking about this as treats specifically. With our day-to-day diets, we want to get better and better at cooking whole foods, removing, making our own dressings, making our own marinades. But that is a process, and there are certain seasons of life when we're better at that than others. Right. But when it comes to treats and our children's having treats, are we just being the Grinch when we don't let them have sugar in that form? Or is it something that's benefiting them down the road? And I want to speak to this from a second generational perspective of having sugar limited extremely in our home. Because I think people always throw out this possibility that if you are very strict with your kids on anything, then one day they're going to wake up, they're going to be 16, 17, 18 years old, and they're just going to go ham. Yeah. Right?
Go ham. Okay.
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
They're just going to like binge, right? They're just going to be like, I wasn't allowed to do this.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go crazy.
Right.
And so we want to avoid that somehow by like giving them donuts earlier. I don't quite understand the logic, but
maybe teaching them moderation.
yeah, teaching them moderation.
I mean, I feel like that's probably the best way to look at it. And you could do the same thing with media and lots of things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same arguments with screens and stuff like that. And I don't know what you would say to this, Elisha.
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, you want to teach your children moderation, but I do, like, when we have young children, we are their parents, and I think we have to make hard decisions for them in their formative years. And it's not, the payoff is not just them like not catching the cold when they're 9 years old. Like, their body is developing at such a rapid rate in their young years right there. So like the physical ramifications for when they're 40 have a lot to do with what they're eating at 8, 9, 10, and 11 years of age, or their children. I mean, it has a lot to do with which you were eating when they were in the womb, you know, like as far as like when their cells are developing and there's that book by Dr. Ben Lynch, Dirty Genes. And I'm not going to try to like, reiterate the book, but that was extremely eye-opening to me because it made me realize, like when we talk about genetics, it's so easy to talk about them as this fixed thing. Like this is what I have. This is the hand I was dealt, so to speak. And I'm going to have dispositions in various areas of my life, in areas of health, even personality, different propensities. And he debunks that in such a way. Yes, you have your genetics that you are born with, but your lifestyle is either going to activate or, the healthy parts of your genes, or it can deactivate the unhealthy, the dirty genes in your body. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, that's kind of like a lot of what his research is directed towards, is realizing like diabetes runs in your family, or, depression runs in your family, or you can go on and on and on. And you do have those genetics in your body. That's like the hand you have been dealt. Now your lifestyle is going to determine whether or not, and there's obviously technical terms for all of this, whether or not those dirty genes are activated. They are playing an active role in how your health is doing, and it's all lifestyle. It's like all lifestyle related. It's diet, it's exercise, it's atmosphere, the environment you put yourself in. And so I'm saying that to say, yes, our children have their genetics, but we get to now, while they're young, feed the healthy part of their genetics. Like we get to have that be a part of their development. And then in addition to that, actually, he goes into how your genetics change over time. Like the way that they are then feeding their body. Again, this is probably painful for anybody that knows what they're talking about. Listening to me try to,
No,
reiterate
I think
this.
it's awesome. I mean, obviously people can read the book, but this is great.
Go read the book. Maybe we'll
notes.
link that below, where it's like what we are eating and what our children are eating is determining our great grandchildren's genetics. Right.
Yeah,
And so
crazy.
so the cancer in your family, or the diabetes in your family, the heart disease, these things that you could point to as being genetic dispositions can be gone 3, 4, 5 generations down the line with lifestyle changes.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy to see. And I think I'm kind of mixing that Deep Nutrition book too.
Yeah, Deep Nutrition's phenomenal. That's the one that scared Elisha and I both into staying away from oils and sugar.
Yeah, that's Dr. Catherine Shanahan, another great book. So going back to making these hard decisions for our kids to, be the joy kill, if you will. It's not just this short term, like, hey, I don't want you to catch a cold tomorrow, or the holidays are coming up and I don't want to have a sick house, although we do hate being sick. And that is a perk, if not eating as many treats as staying healthier in the short term. It's like we are making the hard decision for them while they're in these extremely developmental years for how their health is going to be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. And then how their children's health is going to be as well. And so our children eating, basically, children, if they say they do binge when they're 18, the long-term ramifications are less so at that age because of how developed their body is than if they are growing up on a diet of sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that make
While
sense?
all those cells
Yes.
are being developed,
Yes.
while their brain's being developed, all of those things. And this is, so we get asked, probably the question we get asked way more than the sugar question is, what do you guys do? How do you survive sickness in your home? How do you survive the whole family being down for sickness? And we do not do episodes on this because our whole family has gotten sick once with COVID in 2020. Or 2021.
I think it was 2021.
Yeah, it was a little bit
Maybe
later.
end of 2020. Well, yeah.
But we all got sick with COVID, and that's the only time our whole family has been sick. This year, we have not had any flu go through our family. We've had one child throw up one time, and that's it. We're coming out of the winter right now. And so it's like sickness, we are so grateful that sickness is not a part of our home. And I do think that those short-term ramifications have a ton to do with the amount of sugar that is consumed in our home. My mom always said sugar needs a susceptible host. And so if our immune systems,
like sickness, like a virus,
yes,
needs a susceptible host.
What did I say?
You said sugar needs
thanks for keeping me on track here. Sickness needs a susceptible host, and so if you aren't a susceptible host and you aren't run down and your immune system isn't already compromised, then you're going to get sick a lot less. And sugar is something that really runs down our immune systems. But what is more important to us is those long-term ramifications, like Elisha was saying. And I really feel like we want to build into our children now that they're going to have to live a disciplined life if they want a life that's very fruitful. If we just go with the flow with anything, especially here in America, the end results, the end statistics and the average of those statistics is a little bit of a dumpster fire when it comes to our marriages, when it comes to our children, when it comes to debt in our country, when it comes to health in our country. It's just like you're going to have to be very comfortable going upstream if you want anything different in your life. And I do think that one way we can do this is by being physically active as a family and getting our children used to that. Another way we can do that is by having them get used to flexing the muscle that we don't eat what everybody else eats. There will be food always in front of us that we aren't going to partake in just because it's there or just because everybody else is eating it. Kind of like, talking with our boys, even though they're so little, about just like sexuality at the beach and stuff. Just because everybody is wearing these outfits doesn't mean that we stare at them, Yeah. Just because it's there doesn't mean we just get to partake in what culture's saying is normal.
Yep.
And so I think of that when it comes to food. Just because every other kid is eating whatever treat there is, you just get used to saying, well, I don't do what everybody else does. And I guess I want to speak from experience here, because my parents were kind of the ultimate joy killers when it came to sugar, and that we never could have sugar without asking my parents until I think.
By sugar, we're talking treats still.
Yeah, I'm still talking treats. When I say sugar in this conversation, I'm going to refer to treats.
Okay.
Because I think every parent's doing the best that they can to provide healthy meals for their children.
Yes.
I just have to believe that.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking about the treat stuff right now. So anytime we went to any event, I remember Elisha giving me a really hard time because I was like 15 years old and I had to go ask my parents if I could have a cookie. He's like, what's going on? Like, of course he doesn't remember this,
I make fun of
but
you.
he's like totally razzing me because I don't think I was able to have sugar without asking my parents. I mean, definitely until I was an adult.
Yeah. I mean, I think because I remember you calling your dad like a month ago to see if you could have a Haagen-Dazs. So,
I think I was about 18. And at that point, it was so much a part of my psyche. So let's go back to when I'm a kid. Okay, I can't have sugar without asking. And then most of the time, the answer was no. I would say 99% of the time, I got so used to everyone's eating the sugar, I can't have the sugar.
Yeah.
And if we could have the sugar, it was never a full serving. So it's like I could have half a cookie, or I could have the ice cream cone, with the top lopped off it, or something like that. And that was just normal growing up. And so many people, aunts and uncles and friends, gave my parents a hard time. Like, you are being so strict with your kids. And, clearly we got teased by friends and stuff like that too. But that was just all growing up. Eventually it went like in my teens, I think we could have a sweet a week. But even then it wasn't like, okay, you could binge once a week. It was like you could have half a serving of something once a week and we'd all do it as a family.
Yeah. There's this like infamous story that Uncle Wade tells about going to a birthday party. And it's always so fun hearing about your childhood, like different childhood events that he was a part of, because he's so even though he's your uncle, he's like so close in age. He's just a few years
6
older
years
than
older,
you.
yeah.
And it was probably like one of your birthdays, and he's like 10 and you're turning whatever, 5 or something, and there was a piñata and he was all stoked. He's like, great. So everybody's, hitting the piñata and you do the whole rigmarole and then it finally breaks open and it's bell peppers and vitamin C's that came out.
It was not bell peppers. It was peanuts.
Oh,
but he
peanuts?
said while it was getting hit years later, he was like, I bet bell peppers are going to come out.
Oh, that was, okay, got it.
So it was like a joke, but it was like peanuts and vitamin C.
Because bell peppers were a treat for you guys. Maybe that's what it was.
I still consider them a treat. Like
okay, so the story that he's, the event that he was at, it was peanuts and vitamin C's.
Yes.
Which honestly is...
We were stoked out of our mind.
I bet. Yeah, like those old Kirkland vitamin C's. Were they those ones? Those ones were so... Those were candy.
Those were candy. And I think they actually were.
Yeah.
Like, I think they probably got recalled for all the junk that was in those things. Anyways, that was before people were doing more of their own research. But all that said, that was just growing up. And my parents were really strict with themselves, too. Like, every once in a while... we knew, like, when Mama got her pregnant craving, we would find ice cream in the trash can in the morning sometimes. And so that was kind of incriminating.
Yeah. You gotta do better at hiding the
ice cream carton. And then every once in a while, her other craving that, like, my dad and her always shared in her evening cravings was this vanilla almond crunch granola from Trader Joe's. I don't know if they still make it, but it was too expensive for all us kids to have it because there were so many of us. And so that was just like her little treat. But I really always felt aligned with my parents. I never felt they were hypocritical with their sugar. Like when we were doing 1 sweet a week as a family, they did 1 sweet a week too. So it wasn't like they're just binging in the closet on all this stuff. And then we weren't allowed to have it as kids, which I would still argue is more beneficial for your kids.
No doubt.
Because they might think you're hypocrites, but it's like you're helping protect their genes and their fertility. So...
whether or not they know it, you're doing them a favor.
Yeah, you're still doing them a favor, even if it's hard to have the self-control for yourself. But so that was all growing up. And then by the time I was 16, I would do with my sister, we would do these year challenges. We do them with our friends where we do no sweets for the entire year, no dessert, jam, whatever for the year. My younger siblings still do this. My brother is 14, did it. He did it again at 16. And those were just... I was just so comfortable flexing that muscle of I don't eat sugar. Yeah. What?
No, I'm just thinking of all these times that, not all these times, we've referenced the season of living in the trailer as being a very unhealthy season nutritionally for our family. Yeah, then I got
married.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the Skittles fight, like on our honeymoon, that was like an awakening time for me,
Maybe you should say that and then tell the trailer story.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So we are on our honeymoon. This was like day 2 or 3. And I was like, I feel like a treat. So I went down to the, like resort gift shop or whatever. And I bought a bag of Skittles and I asked Katie if she wanted anything. And she did the class like, I'll just share with you. And, we're still... we're in the honeymoon phase clearly, and so I was like, okay, that's fine. Clearly, I wouldn't let that go now. No, I'm joking.
He still shares with me.
So I brought a bag of Skittles up, and we were like watching a movie, and I opened it. I took like a little handful of like 7 Skittles, and I ate them.
You popped them all in your mouth at the same time.
Yeah, so that blew your mind right there. That had like 7 Skittles at the same. 7 Skittles in my mouth at one time was mind-blowing to you. And then you took the bag, you're like, not like in an aggressive way. You're like, oh, I'll take that. And I let you take it because I was like, oh, Katie, that's right. We are going to share. Katie wants some. And you roll it up and you get out of your bed and you go and you like put it in the drawer or over, like on the counter. And I was like, what are you doing with the Skittles? And you're like, well, we can just like, we'll have some more tomorrow or the next day. We'll save them for later. And I was and there was you weren't being cheeky or funny or like at all. You were being dead serious.
I think that was after I counted out like 5 in my hand or something. I think we'd really splurged at that point, and I'd had 11, which up until this point, I'd only had maybe 3 Skittles at one time. Like you really like would suck on them and savor them for forever.
Yeah. You still savor candy that way. It's crazy.
And you were so mad though. Like you were genuinely upset. And then I got genuinely like a panic attack. Like, who did I marry? He just inhales Skittles, and you wanted the bag back, and you finished eating the bag.
Yeah, because at first I was like, okay, you're joking. And then you weren't joking. And then I was upset. I was like, well, give me the Skittles back. And you're like, no, are you kidding me? And yeah, it was a real thing. Let's just say that. We were both mind blown at who he had married in that instance. But anyways, what I was going to talk about, I think a lot of times when you like go off sugar or you go off sweets, I was just thinking back to like when we were living in the trailer and we had gotten extremely unhealthy in our nutrition at that point. You were in your first trimester. You were extremely nauseous. Cooking was such a bear in that trailer. The smells. It was, there was a bunch of reasons that we could point to for as being excuses. But we were eating a lot of treats at nighttime. You and I were.
We were like depressed.
We were.
And all we were doing was like getting in bed, watching a movie and eating. I would eat chocolate and you would get a candy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
That's gross.
Anyways, so we had a moment of conviction or something like that. I don't know. And we're like, hey, let's go off sugar. And so we went off sugar, like air quotations. And then we somehow decided, we had this mutual agreement that like kombucha and kettle corn were not treats. Like this isn't, and we started doing that every night for like 6 months.
We wouldn't buy the kettle corn. We get the stuff that you like pop in the microwave. So it doesn't look like candy. It looks like normal popcorn, but it's like full of who knows what.
Yeah. And we were doing the Synergy brand. Is that they called Synergy? That kombucha or the GTs?
Trilogy. Oh yeah, GTs.
GTs. Yeah.
Right.
And there's like 14 grams, 16 grams of sugar.
Oh my word. I know we laugh at that like probably every couple months. We're like, we were crazy. Like our weaning ourselves off sugar was like 50 grams a night.
Anyways, that's why I was smiling. That's why I was smiling. I kind of derailed you from
that's good,
your growing up experience with sugar.
It's funny what can get grandfathered in. It's like, this isn't a treat.
Yeah.
This is
well, that's
normal.
a huge thing for us right now is even gum because like we don't do desserts, we don't do treats, and it's nice because I had that craving for them for a long time. Like that was another thing, when I was working, I would be closing the coffee shop when I was in Sisters. I'd swing by the little handy mart on my drive back because it's like a 25-30 minute drive. I'd get a candy bar or a bag of Mike and Ike's. I loved the sour Mike and Ike's. Those are so good. Not every gas station has them. You got to really like shop around the gas stations to find the sour Mike and Ike's. And, that would be like an evening ritual. After closing the coffee shop, I'd eat those. And then I put them in the trash can before I came in, like in the outside trash can.
Put the wrappers in the outside trash. If that lets you know what our marriage was like when it came to sugar.
I don't know. I'm getting so distracted here. What was I going to say about our kiddos? Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought there.
Oh, gum.
Oh yeah, gum is one of those things it's so easy to overlook because it's clearly a treat. It's clearly sugary, and also when it comes to just like the health of our teeth, I don't think it's great. Yeah. At least that's what the dentist said. So but after your last experience, I don't know if we trust them anymore. And so everybody has their blind spots, and it's like hopefully over time we are able to see those. And acknowledge them.
We aren't here to be the holier than thou, follow me. We aren't here to be like Paul, which is like, follow me, do as I do. Okay. When it comes to sugar, we're just this is just a conversation about sugar. Okay. Maybe get you talking about sugar in your home and kind of explaining, I guess this is what I want to encourage you in, if you're listening. I think a lot of parents can feel guilt around telling their kids they can't have sugar when other kids are having it. I know that I can't. I can feel really bad when we go to home group and all the kids are grabbing sugar and I think, you know what? We don't need to do this every week. Just because there's sugar out doesn't mean we need to partake in the sugar. And I go, and the kids are looking at me and I'm just like, okay, you could have it. It's so much easier for me to say that than in a lot of ways, it's like, you have to flex your muscle as a parent, the delayed gratification muscle for your kids. You're doing it with your kids when you're saying no to something because we love to see our kids' eyes light up and we love to make them excited. And we're saying no to giving them something that's going to make them very excited and give us both a dopamine rush.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it can be really hard in moments. I honestly feel worse now when I tell my kids, though, okay, you can have sugar, because I think I wasn't strong enough to be strong for them right now.
Yeah.
I had to see them get stoked and be excited about that.
Wow, that sounds...
Maybe not I had to, but like...
sounds messed up.
I wasn't flexing my self-control muscle to be like, I'm going to stand firm in this. No. Yeah. And help let them reap those benefits of saying no in the moment, because you want it, you crave it, you salivate for this sugar for like a brief period of time, but then the ramifications of that are much longer on our genetics and our health. And so going back though, real quick, to just like how I grew up, and then I got married and clearly, went on some rocky seasons when it came to sugar, coping throughout our life. I feel like we've been in a good place for a couple of years now, maybe 2 or 3 years.
I don't feel hypocritical.
No, I don't.
There are even times where I'll be like, we should celebrate. Like it's whatever, Friday night, like, but nobody like feels like ice cream. It's like, I'll be
like
like,
we just
should
don't
we go?
Crave it.
It's not a thing right now, which is really nice, honestly.
Yeah. So that's not to say we haven't, Elisha's taken us on spontaneous ice cream trips as a family, and those have been a ton of fun, but it's just something that we aren't in the habit of anymore. And the thing with sugar is the more you have, the more you crave. I got these big Costco fig bars, the big box of fig bars. There's tons of sugar in those. But my family was in town and I thought those will be easy grab and go snacks for like hikes and stuff like that. And one of our children ate those and he goes, the tricky thing about these is you eat one and you want another one and you want another one. I was like, that's so true with sugar. You eat it and you aren't really satisfied until you're sick. Yeah. And then you're like, ugh. Yeah. It's just crazy how that works. And so when you're in the habit of not eating sugar, you don't crave the sugar. It's not actually hard. Yeah. But
then once you start though, like you said, I remember being mind blown because we hadn't had sugar, and we did that police department tour.
Oh yeah.
Here in town, and they had a bowl of candy there for everybody, and that blew my mind. I think it was like a Starburst that I ate, and that was so good. And I grabbed a handful and just ate all, like had them in my pocket as we were walking around the police department, and it blew my mind because I had not craved candy for years at that point, since the Mike and Ike days. And then I went into like the little packs of Skittles, little packs of Starburst, and I was like, there's a reason people like this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So one thing though, I guess looking back, I'm so grateful that my parents made those hard decisions for me. Because for one, I feel like my health, the health that I get to have right now, they laid the groundwork for, and I didn't have to for 18 years. Right. And that's when I had to start taking it on as my own. But at that point, I knew my parents looked super healthy. They had a lot of energy. I wanted that. And I knew why they were doing it at that point. And so as an adult, I didn't have cravings for things like soda because I never drank it. I didn't have cravings for juice because I never drank it. Mm-hmm. I still could not crave candy to save my life because I don't even know what any of the candies taste like aside from the Skittles in the candy aisle. Yeah. Like I just go to the candy aisle and I just I don't know, it all looks like plastic.
Right.
Like I don't salivate when I see things. Now, when I see like a caramel chocolate bar, like just thinking about that right now will get me like, oh, I know what that tastes like. Mm-hmm. And so that was my Achilles heel after we got married. Being able to be like, what? I can eat chocolate? Like this, what is this milk chocolate with the caramel? Yeah. But that's just not something that's a part of our life. And I guess I don't ever feel like, oh, it led to this great binging later on in life. Yeah. Or any more so than it would have had they taught me moderation. I think this whole moderation is just a myth when it comes to sugar, because all we're doing is we're giving our kids these cravings that they're going to have to fight the rest of their life. And the longer you can hold off on giving them those cravings, the better, in my opinion. And then the other side of it is the more that they can flex that muscle of delayed gratification, of saying no in the moment, of impulse control, that is going to serve them their entire life. Yeah. And if they do have a health crisis and they do have to totally abstain from all these things, which a lot of people in our generation are now having, they're having to flex that muscle out of necessity. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice having that confidence going like, oh, I've done that before, I can do this again.
Yeah, I agree. Because I'm sure there are some instances where teaching moderation is really helpful. Like you said, with sugar, that might be a myth. I'm not sure. But you take, what's cool is that when you are saying no to something, well, actually, I think this is what is necessary. When you're saying no to things like sugar, you have to have a substitute. You have to have an alternative. And it's the same thing with media, with screens. And you're developing a capability in your children that's beyond just that moment. It's an actual skill set, I think, oftentimes, like learning to enjoy a home-cooked meal, learning to enjoy, like even making a meal, right? Learning to enjoy being healthy, learning to enjoy activities instead of just sitting and eating candy. And I think the same goes for, especially for screens. It's like, well, I'm teaching them moderation so that they don't, binge when they are on their own. But what's cool is that, like, if you're teaching them a capability to enjoy books or to enjoy playing music or to enjoy doing puzzles or to enjoy playing board games instead of the screen, and then they turn 18, they binge, they actually have now a capability to fall back on when they are they're like, they get through the binge, or they're kind of like, I want to do something with my life. They have a skill set. I feel like that happened to me. Like, my parents made me practice music. Then it became my own life. I moved out, or, whatever. I was a young adult and I didn't want to practice. I wanted to watch movies because that's what my friends were doing. I wanted to stay up late. I didn't want to get up early and work out. But then you come to a point where you're kind of like, okay, I want to be done with that. Like, whatever, that ran its course. It's not fun anymore staying up watching movies. Then I had a skill set to fall back on that I knew I enjoyed before. It's like, well, I know I like playing music. I know I like, reading books, and I can fall back on that. And so, again, I don't want to like assume our kids are going to go through these binge stages, because I think that's also kind of like sometimes like, why are we counting on that, right? We can teach them to not do that.
It's not like a necessary rite of passage. Like, yeah. I don't feel like I went through any like binge seasons to make up for what my parents were strict about.
But I'm just saying, like, worst case scenario, say that fear comes true. Well, they actually have a skill set now that was developed in their childhood, or an appetite, or they have a whole, I guess, archive of memories of having good memories that were not dependent on sugar, where you look back and you're like, oh no, I remember, like, I loved family nights when there was no candy. I can have family nights with my family and have it not be candy. I loved family nights when the treat was apples and cheese, growing up. And we get to create, I think, like, memories or experiences kind of serve as the capability, so that when you are older and you have to make the decisions for yourself, you're like, no, I know we had a good time without movies and without Skittles, being the main theme.
Yeah, because culture tells you have to have these things. Sugar really is a drug that a lot of us use. It's very addictive. And it's really nice to, like you said, have that confidence that I can enjoy life without these things. I have before, I can do it again, if it's not serving our kids. But if our kids never have known a life without it, and they get some kind of diagnosis that says, hey, you can't partake in these things, and they're like, that, like, every good memory I have is associated with that. This is ingrained in my neural pathways. Not that can't be overcome, but that's a lot harder for them to overcome.
Yes.
And so I just think I think often being I use the word strict. I also think strictness can thrive with joy. Like, we were just talking about this today. My home growing up was so joy-filled. We had such a good time. I had such a good time. My parents had such a good time. And we still, as a family, have a great time. But when you look at how my parents parented us, they probably fall on a very strict side of the spectrum. But our house didn't feel strict. Right. Like, it didn't feel, that wasn't the atmosphere of our home, was like confining and do's and don'ts. Like you touched on, Elisha, there were so many things that we did instead. And so it wasn't just like they said no to stuff. We just had a good life with a ton of other stuff that did serve us. And my home wasn't a perfect home. I'm just saying it gives me confidence when it comes to setting guidelines for our own children that we think are going to serve them in the long term, but maybe are harder for them and harder for us in the present. It can be a very rich and fulfilling thing.
Yes.
And not that it can't be done poorly, and other people can be like, my parents totally like robbed me of the joy of childhood. I think that does happen as well, and we want to be intentional about that. But this is something that's really become a part of our family culture, doing things different, and we bond over that. Like, our kids are stoked because when we go to an event and there's sugar, and Elisha and I say, hey guys, just so you know, if there's sugar at tonight's event, we aren't going to be eating it. We don't eat it as a family. And so it's like they're in this with daddy and mommy and their other siblings, and they're really proud of it. It's really cute to see the kids, how they don't even ask. They just know we don't do that. And they get in the car and sometimes they bring it up. Like they're just so proud of our family for not eating the sugar. And I'm not saying like having little self-righteousness is healthy either, okay? That's not what we're trying to train either. But it really makes me happy that we can all be in this together and have self-control together. And they see Elisha and I doing that just as they're having to flex that muscle.
Yeah, I want, like you said, I want to assume, but maybe I shouldn't, that like joy, like life, fun, all those things I want to have be present in my children's childhood. Like I don't want it to be a boring, lifeless, joyless childhood, and I don't want our home to be that way either. So like that aside, I do think there is like this total pendulum that parents will do where they stop parenting and they like insert their own, I know I've done this, they insert their own, I don't know if ego's the right word, or it's like they don't want to feel bad. It's like, hey, you're beating yourself up. You've got too high of a standard for how your kid's going to do in math or whatever. Like you need to lighten up. And it's like, okay, that might be the case, but we're talking about the kid here, right? Like, so bailing on all their math development, you're really not doing your kid a favor either, right? Like, and when they're 11 or 12, I'm just using math as an example because I know it's like a battle in our home with the kids, right? And I think it's a battle in a lot of people's homes. It was for me. And my mom like they made the hard parenting decisions. It wasn't like, okay, you know, this in the grand scheme of things, this really doesn't matter. I just want to have their heart. I want them to love their childhood. And I think you can swing to that side when it comes to sugar, when it comes to just making your kid do hard things. And I think you need to like expect that as a parent, that like we've talked about this, you know, folly is bound up in the heart of a child. Like, you know, children left to their own devices are just going to pursue foolishness. They're not going to be fruitful. We are like, that is a part of parenting, is discipline, is being strict, is making the hard decisions for them. And I think that goes into multiple categories of life, but this is one of those where like you're not doing the kid a favor. Like it's not kind to the child to do the easy thing in the moment. It's not kind to the child long-term, you know, and for their future development to, you know, just say yes, say, okay, it's not that big of a deal. Just, you know, get over yourself, parent. You know, it's your ego. Just like, well, no, like also think of the child too.
Yeah. And we're sold in society that we can't have fun without substances. And unfortunately, sugar is a substance that is included in that sales pitch. And it's just not true. We don't want our children to think that that's true. And we just want them to have a lot of good memories, knowing that you don't need sugar to have those good memories. There are two things I want to real quickly touch on. One of them is social sugar. There are times when we go over to someone's house, we are going to have the dessert.
Oh,
you know,
doubt.
This is never something that we're going to make a stink out of publicly.
Nope.
At all. And so that doesn't mean that we don't go to public events and limit the kids' sugar and our sugar intake quietly at the event. Usually we decide beforehand, so it's not actually a discussion there. And the kids are so used to not having even like the same portion size. Like whatever the portion size is, we aren't going to have the full portion. I think it's just like a good, I don't know. I just think it's a good thing to have here in America. Everything is supersized. So I just want the assumption to be, oh, I'm never going to have the full amount of what's served because it's going to be bigger than what I need. But whenever we like go to someone's house or something like that, we enjoy the sugar and the kids ask for it. We say yes, and it's great, and everybody has fun.
Yeah, we're social sugar eaters.
We are social sugar eaters, but that doesn't mean at every social event, if like the eyes aren't on us, then we aren't going to be.
If it's a big group event.
Yeah, if it's a big group event, it's easy. People don't know if you had it or not.
Yeah, but if somebody has us over dinner and they made a pie and it's ice cream,
we're going to enjoy the pie.
Yeah, I'm going to have a great time.
We're going to love it. The other thing is when it comes to treats and just like understanding sugar, a great book is Glucose Revolution. I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but I think it's really helpful because it's so crazy how many like air quote healthy sugars now are in our just get grandfathered in. It was kind of like the organic label where we started to be like, it's organic. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, it still has everything that's going to give you cancer, but hey, it's organic. Yeah. You know, and the same thing happens with sugar. It happens with sugar alcohols. It happens with coconut sugar. Like Well, your glucose won't spike as much, yeah, but your fructose like doubly spikes more than cane sugar. It's actually not a great sugar for your body. It does the same thing to your body. So whatever kind of sugar, like raw honey, we have raw honey in our home, and that is something that our kids consistently have. I think that's what we owe our dental work to, because they have raw honey in their hot cereal. And so we just have to be aware, like, okay, that sugar entering our kiddos' bloodstream, that's like contributing to their overall daily amount of sugar. Things like maple syrup and honey, even when it's raw and pure and all those things. And so I think sometimes we can split hairs over like, well, it's brown sugar or it's organic coconut sugar or all these things. We're just kind of like, it's all sugar.
Yeah.
It all spikes glucose. It all requires insulin. It's all taking us toward diabetes and obesity. So we need to like be aware of it.
Which is why if I'm going to have a treat, I'm going to do the real thing.
Well, I think there's something to that. Yeah. Like even like candies, right?
Yeah.
I do love that they don't have the dyes.
Well, yeah, there's the chemicals.
There's dyes
like,
and there's chemicals. But when it comes to the sugar, it's all sugar.
Yeah.
And so just being comfortable with that. Okay, this is kind of a funny fact. It's kind of sad. In the 1700s, the average person ate 4 pounds of sugar a year. In the 1800s, it went up to 18 pounds of sugar a year. In the 1900s, it went up to 60 pounds of sugar a year. And today we're over 100 pounds of sugar a year.
Look at that.
Going from
consistent growth
to 100. That's what we like to see, consistent growth. But this is a real thing that's heavy on my heart, I guess, because we aren't like purists when it comes to food. I want to get better. Like I know too much to not be a purist.
Yes.
So we really need to put our effort where our knowledge base is.
Yes. It makes me grateful too, because when I look at so many of the positive habits or things I have in my life right now, it was because of my parents making hard decisions for me. It was them having me, saying no to a lot of treats. My mother making the effort to cook so much at home. And then to other disciplines too. It's like they making me do my practice, making me do my school. And so I just want to like really take that seriously as a parent, that it's like, again, as adults, it's like, well, yeah, you have to take responsibility for your life and grow from where you're at, take that stewardship mindset, but at the same time, take that stewardship mindset into the children you have in your home too. And, and accept that like they are probably not going to be fans of a lot of, I say that our kids love their life. So I don't even want to assume that. Be like, hey, you've got to be the bad guy. Yes, you might have to be the bad guy at times, but I think you can make it awesome.
I think, that's what I like come around to is like, I don't think our kids feel deprived at all.
No.
I mean, we'll hear from them in a few years, but currently what they're telling us is they love their life.
Right.
And they feel a lot of accomplishment with their life, and we love them and they love us. And like, I think the attitude with which we communicate things goes a long ways. If we are joyful in saying why we aren't doing something versus glaring at our kid and asking like they're a terrible person for asking us for sugar or something, it's like, I think that goes a long ways. Just the joy and the atmosphere of the home more than what is actually being allowed or not allowed.
Right.
So anyways, that is our little sugar soapbox.
And that's our spiel.
That's our
Folks,
spiel.
if you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a thumbs up or something like that. Okay. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.